Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, huge news, something we have been expecting. We do officially have confirmation of the Bitmain Antminer L11 as well as an L11 Hydro unit, which is pretty interesting. We're going to talk about it. We're going to look at the specs. We're going to talk about the specs because we do have all those. We'll talk about launch windows. We'll compare it to the competition because now with the launch of this unit, the next gen of Scrypt ASICs is now becoming pretty clear. And it's definitely making things clear for me as far as where to kind of pivot to. Okay, so we'll talk about it. We'll give our overall thoughts. If that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So huge update. This is something we've been expecting. We've been waiting for. If this is a surprise to you, you're not paying attention, right? As we've mentioned, it was extremely likely, especially after elphapex announced their unit. Again, like we mentioned in that video, they put a huge target on their back, especially because it's so far ahead of time, for the competition to get their things going, right? And here's the L11, okay? Let's look at the specs. Let's look at the air-cooled unit first. That to me is the more appealing unit. There's two variants, an L11 and L11 Pro. Right off the bat, which is not a big fan of them doing that lately. Typically, that's more of a following year refresh kind of thing, but they started with the AL1. Here it is again. We'll start off with the Pro unit, L11 Pro, 21 gigahash, 3,612 watts for a 172 joules per gigahash. Okay, the regular L11, 20 gigahash, 3,680 watts, 184 joules a gigahash. Okay, immediately just glancing at the specs, a little unusual with the Pro unit getting more hash rate at slightly less wattage. Okay, it is more efficient. Similar to kind of the elphapex unit, I'm curious if they're following that same formula. They're just adding a few more chips, decreasing the clocks to kind of bump up the efficiency. Kind of funny that they literally mimic that now. We'll see as to what the actual confirmation of that detail is going to be in the future. But regardless, we'll compare it here in a moment. We'll give our overall thoughts. What's kind of a little bit more interesting, actually, the freaking Hydro unit. Okay, so an L11 Hydro unit, 33 gigahash, 5,676 watts, 172 joules a gigahash. So it's on par with the L11 Pro, the air-cooled unit, which again, typically with these things, we do want to see better efficiency. But again, it's the density factor here. So looking at the picture, though, it's telling us a lot of things here. Number one, very similar to the other units, right, as far as the size of it, until we look at the bottom tier, right, specifically referring to the top portion over here. This looks like it's going to be a self-contained unit, meaning that the cooling aspect is this big chunky thing with the 3 fans down underneath it. My guess is that there's a heat exchanger inside of there. They're going to use these ASIC style fans to cool that heat exchanger. Okay, because you can even see on the units here, the inlet outlet, and it's going into the bottom unit, which is where the heat exchanger is. Okay, so again, we're just speculating, but that's kind of what makes the most sense here. My curiosity, I mean, it's almost for sure going to be 3-phase. It would be way more appealing if this thing was a single-phase unit because this thing would clear almost exactly a 30 amp circuit. The density factor would be there. This would be something that would definitely be much more appealing if it's single phase. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be. Most likely, it is going to be 3-phase. But that definitely would be appealing, especially in hotter locations. Now, am I fully sold on it, though? Would I be really interested in buying a first-gen product like this? Probably not, right? Because realistically, we're going to have to wait to see how it actually holds up, right? So again, 5,600 watts, that is a lot to cool down. We're going to see how well it works. Again, it would be very interesting to see how efficient it is, especially in the cooling, especially in a hot climate, like somewhere down in Florida or in the dry desert, things of that sort. But very interesting on that front, and I guarantee you, if they are building a unit like this, they are also custom building units, these little smaller U2 or U3 units for bigger farms, right? And that's probably where this concept is coming from, Okay, so they're going to make these available for us plebs, but as we've mentioned in a lot of the previous Scrypt ASIC mining videos, it is extremely likely that there's already institutional type mining for this coin, right? A lot of people are thinking it's just plebs and stuff. We've looked at the numbers, we've broken it down. There's no way that it's all retail or all small at-home miners or even some of you larger guys with like 20, 30 units causing the hash rate increase as much as it has, right? It's extremely likely, running the numbers, that there's big players already using Scrypt, most likely to mine BTC, or to earn BTC, I should say. So, interesting there. Now, again, another glance at the specs. We'll do direct comparisons. This is gonna be the better way to do it. So let's look at the overall unit. So as far as profitability goes, then currently it's excellent. Okay, so your daily revenue would be about 30 bucks a day minus your 867 electric. This is on a 10-cent kilowatt hour. Realistically, again, most of you guys should probably be hosting. That's going to be the name of the game unless you're one of the few lucky guys who are like 8 cents and under. But your total profitability would be about 21 bucks. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention, shout out to T-Swift. It does sound like pre-orders aren't going to start until potentially November. And this thing actually being delivered sometime Q1 2026. Right? Could that be January? Could that be March? Could it be delayed? Potentially, right? Those are kind of some of the downfalls with pre-orders, right? Especially that far ahead of time. So just kind of factor that in. Let's do some more direct comparisons though. Again, this is the L11. So again, in a more common comparison, it's 0.18 joules to mega hash. That's what we'll use to kind of compare with the others. The L9, right, which is the previous gen unit, 0.21. Okay, so when we look at the difference, even between the L11 Pro, because again, it is slightly more efficient, to the previous gen L9, this is where my excitement kind of dwindles down. To an extent, right? Realistically, I'll mention as to why it actually does make me a little bit more excited for another unit. Oddly enough, this unit, right? Reason being, it's not that big of an efficiency increase. Okay, if we compare the regular L9, the most common unit is the 16 gigahash unit, 0.21. The L11 Pro, which is the more significant unit, 0.17. It's under a 20% increase in efficiency. Which, considering the naming moniker, right? Typically when we see the number jump, it's a generational leap. Meaning usually something more significant, right? Typically if we're seeing something like a 15-20%, it's usually, especially considering the fact that it hasn't even been a full year since the release of the L9. Okay, realistically, it would have made more sense for this L11 to be the L11 or the L9 Plus, the L9 Pro, something of that sort, versus it being a new generation. Okay, the fact that they're trying that almost reeks of desperation a little bit, as far as from the marketing perspective at least, because realistically, it's not much of an upgrade, right? So the reason I'm saying it, not super excited here, but I would be excited for this guy, is because this is most likely still the unit to get depending on price, right? If you're in the market right now, this will definitely give me more confidence in getting a unit now, or if you guys who got one when you should have gotten one back when they were cheaper and you've already mined it for a while, definitely good for you guys, right? Because again, that's one of the biggest threats with any ASICs, is the threat of that bigger, better ASIC. And the fact that now the next gen has essentially been revealed and it's not much better than the current gen, definitely panned out, right? Because again, a 20% increase in efficiency, not that much, especially considering the fact that you're going to be waiting 4, 5, 6 plus months potentially for this guy. As well as the other big competitor, right, being elphapex. Very similar story. It is not much more efficient than the L9, and same thing, you're going to be waiting quite a ways away. So in this sense, to me at least, the L9 makes more sense all day to get now, especially on the price. The biggest differentiating factor would be if this guy comes in extremely aggressive with the price, which I highly, highly doubt considering where we're at in the market, right? Some of the vendors did have some prices up, and it's kind of what we're expecting, right? But for me, at least, it does give more clarity because, again, like we mentioned, That's always the threat of that bigger, better miner. But the fact that we already know what's coming around 6 months down the road, and that it's only a 15 to 20% increase in efficiency, definitely makes me more bullish on the L9s. Something to factor in there, okay? So yes, I'm usually a much bigger advocate for getting the latest and greatest, but at this point, waiting 6 months, potentially well after the top, for not much more efficiency, I would much rather wait to get one of these farther down the road as the market dips, if it dips, depending on your perspective of the market, down in that region, right? Because then if you get a deal on it, obviously that changes things, okay? But most likely that would come well farther down the road. That's when I would really be looking to getting a unit. But overall, especially again comparing it to the DG2 Plus being at 0.19, again, even from this guy to the L11 Pro, like a 10% difference, right? Is it really that much? Nope. But did we figure that almost for sure, like guaranteed, Bitmain was going to release one prior to the DG2 launching? 100%, right? Again, pay attention to these dynamics and these battles. This is why we follow these battles, because you can see what's coming next. Okay, and the fact that what's coming next ain't too great bodes well for the current gen. Okay, and then the other big thing is that they did just enough pretty much to beat out the DG2 Plus, right? So notice this guy being rated at 20.5 and Bitmain being that petty Betty coming at 21. They should have gone a little bit more. I mean, it's at 3,600 watts. Again, the trend has been like high threes. Clock it a little bit higher. Like, give yourself a little leeway. Go up to 22, 23. Because I wouldn't be surprised if these guys magically change their thing to go up to 21.5 or to match them, even though it's slightly less efficient. Just, again, it's the games that these manufacturers play just to be considered the king or the best, because, again, they know that's what gets the most attention. Okay? So currently, these guys were the king. I mean, technically, it was actually the Volk miner. The reason I'm not really mentioning the Volk miner too much, I wouldn't put them in the same bracket in terms of quality, right? And again, with ASICs, if the price difference isn't too much, it's definitely a game of the quality, durability. I would rate the L9 being the highest. elphapex would be right behind them. Okay. So yeah, as far as these are concerned, it's not much of an upgrade over the L9. To me, this just makes the L9 shine even brighter. The D1 Pro, 0.19 joules the mega hash. Impressive specs. Again, is just on the reliability chart, is just not there. The price would have to be extremely aggressive, but the fact that it's very comparable to the current prices of the L9s, it just doesn't make any sense, right? Again, if this guy was like 4,500 bucks, then sure, but when this guy's coming in at, let's say, 7,200 and the L9 is 7,400, I'm going to pick the L9 100 out of 100 times, right? So it just kind of is what it is on that front. And then this guy, again, just the overall interesting unit. Again, I wish it were single phase. This would be, again, something appealing for those of us in hot climates, but I guarantee it's going to be 3-phase. Impressive profitability, right? $47.30 in revenue, $33.68 in profit. This is at a 10-cent kilowatt hour, right? So you can increase that even more. Again, it'd be the density factor. We'll see how it actually performs, but interesting, right? So cool form factor. Let's look and see if we can find some prices. Nhash didn't have anything listed. Miner Bros actually does have the L11 Pro at 11,000. Right, they're listing a Q4 2025 batch, but it does seem like it might be a little bit later. Keep in mind, Miner Bros typically is a little bit on the higher end. This isn't confirmed. We're going to have to wait from Bitmain to see what their MSRP is going to be, and then we can kind of get a better idea as far as resellers go, because I'm sure they're going to play with the prices a little bit. But the reason we're expecting them to be in this price range, and then that's also what Miner Bros has in there, is because of the DG2 and DG2 Plus, right? So the Hydro unit, they have it at 19 grand. The DG2 Plus at 10,600, and the regular DG2 at 8,000. Okay, so it makes sense that it would be in this range. Most likely they could potentially undercut them slightly. But again, if the two units are in the same price range, the Bitmain unit, although slightly, it's more efficient, I'm going to still pick the Bitmain units, right? And even realistically, right now, in this time, I would be picking the L9, right? It's already been out for almost a year, hasn't even been a full year yet. It's proven itself, it's reliable, it's durable, it's within under 20% with the efficiency gain of the U unit. It just kind of makes sense, right? So we'll see if pricing maybe goes down on these. I kind of doubt it because, again, the L11s are not going to be shipping most likely until Q1 2026, potentially later. We'll find out for sure here, probably in the coming days, maybe in the coming weeks when Bitmain decides to give us the full deets. But for now, pretty impressive unit. Not really, especially, I mean, I think what's throwing people off, or at least me off, is the L11 name moniker, right? Again, like we mentioned, it should realistically be the L9 Plus, L9 Pro, whatever the hell, but just along the same generation, right? It shouldn't be a whole new L11. Again, to me, this seems like a desperate marketing gimmick, but weird. But again, the main takeaway here is that the next gen is pretty clear. We do know what's coming from Bitmain. We do know what's coming from elphapex, which are currently the top two for Scrypt ASICs. We know it's coming out in the next 6 months or so, and we already know what's there, right? So this is kind of big because, again, that to me is one of the biggest worries when getting an ASIC is because of the bigger, better miner, and especially considering how fast these refreshes are coming out. Okay, I know a lot of people have been saying that, oh, there's no way there's going to be a new version of the L9 because the L7 lasted for 3 years or whatever. To me, that's all garbage. That's all from back then, right? We've been following the ASIC market extremely closely these past few years, and speed is the name of the game, right? At this point, it's almost a yearly thing, which in a sense is unfortunate, right? Realistically, again, you would ideally want to get at least a year and a half, 2 years of being able to mine with the better unit if you're buying that new unit on launch, and nowadays is just not the case, right? Even with something like Scrypt, where again everybody tends to mention the previous unit lasting so long, hasn't even been a year and we're already getting this unit. Okay, so just keep that in mind with any ASICs, is that it's cutthroat, it is ruthless, it is a degen play, it's not something that's consistent. Again, like we've mentioned, mining, especially ASIC mining, is a degen play. You need to understand that. You can't just calculate ROI, especially this time in the cycle if we do peak here in the next 4 to 6 months. Okay, just fully understand all those dynamics, especially with how high the hash rate has gone with Scrypt. Okay, it's pretty crazy. And what's even crazier is a lot of it, there's more newer Scrypt ASICs than previous gen Scrypt ASICs, right? If we go back a year to around the time that this guy released, we're about 1.1, 1.17 petahash. Currently, depending, obviously it jumps, but about 2.6, 2.7, right? So it's definitely more than doubled pretty significantly. And it's only going to continue to go higher, right? It's gonna keep going, understand where we're at in this market, understand what is likely to happen in sometime the next 6, 8, maybe a little bit longer months. Fully prepare for that, right? Don't go in here calculating on like mining now what your profit is going to be 2 years from now using these type of numbers. Okay, so understand that. We'll do other videos talking about those things. But pretty interesting unit here. Again, it's not something that we should surprise you. We were fully expecting it. The only thing I guess you could consider surprising is that it's called the L11 versus, again, the L9 Plus Pro. Let me know in the comments though, guys. What do you guys think? Are you guys super impressed by this? Are you guys kind of like not so much? Does it make you more bullish on current gen, on the L9? Or are you all about this? Would you be willing to wait for it? Let me know in the comments your thoughts, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm out.